Death, depression, divorce, debt, devastation, deadbeat, despair. There is a black male mental health struggle. I became a therapist in therapy. The unsustainability of black male trauma, black male rage, black male resentment is a real thing, an unsustainable thing. So what's the struggle? 1 in 4 psychologists are black. And when I say black, I mean that includes black men and black women. According to the American Psychological Association, 4% psychologists worldwide, in this country, are black. For every 100,000 black Americans, only 1 black psychiatrist. 7% of black men received any form of mental health services in the last couple years. Right? Black youth, particularly black boys, are introduced with the struggle of mental health at a very early age. It's treated in elementary school by suspensions or special education referrals. What's the black struggle? That's it. The inadequacy of practitioners who look like black men, who have a unique experience with mental health. Right? What does that mean for all of us? The current mental health industry does not sustain black male trauma, black male rage, black male resentment, which means we have to look at the factors that are uniquely attributed to black males in this country. What makes me qualified to talk about black male mental health struggle? Well, beyond the obvious of being a black male, I crashed in 2008, the year the mortgage industry crashed, the real estate market, right? That same year, my mother informed me she had stage 4 cancer. In 2009, I became a father for the 4th time. But this time was unique because the child was already 21 years old, which means right before my 17th birthday, I had a child. In 2010, my mother ended up passing away from cancer. I moved her from Chicago to Georgia before the diagnosis to live out her golden years under the sun of the South, to work with me and for me. She ended up passing. In 2011, I went to what I now label as a very eventful divorce. I lost everything. I walked away from everything. I lost my family, my spouse at the time away from the children, assets, things of that nature. In 2012, I experienced my very first panic attack. I found myself in the middle of a public park here in Atlanta, lying on my back, crying profusely for what seems like hours. In 2013, I had my second panic attack. This one was different. This one, I was with the partner at the time, and she said that she overheard me saying some things that were troubling. Later on that day, I had a special event I needed to be at. My friend at the time took me to the local emergency room because as black males, that is how we address our mental health struggles, right? When it really gets to a point, we have to see someone at the local hospital in the emergency room. So, of course, they kept me, 72 hours, suicide watch. I missed the court date. My partner at the time took the signed medical excuse to court at the time that I was supposed to report. The judge refused it, subsequently generating a bench warrant, and I eventually had to address that. That same year, 2013, my father passed, just when we were attempting to repair a 40-plus year fragmented, fragile, broken relationship. He passed. Went to Chicago, did the mourning, came back to Atlanta. 2 days after mourning my dad's death, I was pulled over by local law enforcement. I had to settle that warrant from a few months earlier. So for the next 57 days, I sat in a jail cell, in a jumpsuit, grieving what I thought initially was only my father's death. What I now know was all of the stressors, the losses, the trauma, the rage, the resentment I had since I crashed the same year the mortgage and real estate market crashed. So during that time, I went to 5 different therapists. Now, I wasn't shy from therapy because my mother, bless her heart, she was ahead of her time. She took me to see a therapist in high school. We're talking in the 80s. The good thing is it ended up being family therapy, and we learned a lot of tools and strategies that really benefited us. But when it was my time, during 2008 to 2013, it felt differently, right? But I still went. I went to 5 different ones. The first 4, nothing. It was cool to share my struggles, but I didn't get any help. Why? Because it was irrelevant, right? The practitioners who did not look like me were culturally incompetent. They meant well. I didn't have time to teach them about my lived experiences. I needed tools and strategies. I needed them like yesterday. So after going through 4 different therapists, I gave up on therapy. I knew I was in trouble. It was evidence in my life. I still didn't know where to go. Good friend urged me to take one more attempt to finding a therapist. So I did. Found this gentleman. Walked in his office. I knew the drill, right? Sat down, poured out my heart, right, for the next 30, 35 minutes. And at the end of my spiel, the gentleman looked me in my eye and asked me this question that forever changed my life. He said, "You ever thought about becoming a therapist?" I said, "Man, what? Are you kidding me? I'm here for therapy. I'm not here for career coaching." He said, "No, hear me out." He said, "Look, I am about to retire. I've been doing this 35 years. I've seen black men come and go. I can't help them. I don't think the entire mental health industry can help them, but I think you can." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you're not clinically depressed. You're emotionally exhausted. You're sad. You're angry. You're devastated, right? You're going through trauma. You're grieving, but it's not clinical depression. It's the unique experience of being a black male in this country, right? I'm not asking you to give up on therapy. Just find someone who looks like you. Better yet, become the person you're looking for. You are your own solution." And I left out of his office feeling defeated, right? Devastated, right? I was pissed. Walked out of it. I said, "Okay, no worries. I'll figure it out. As a matter of fact, I'm not doing anything." 3 weeks later, I started to feel better. His words touched me spiritually, mentally, emotionally. I started feeling lighter, right? Things started to make sense to me. He went on to say, "Go back to school. Let your journey be a part of your healing. And somehow I think this is your purpose. This is what the last therapist told me. And that's what I did. That gentleman was a middle-aged white guy. So I did what he told me, right? It makes sense. He said, it's no accident you're here. I did it. Didn't necessary training. I dropped out a PhD program so I can add D to that list of Ds I started off with, right? So I got back in school. I had nothing else going on. It changed my life. So now I spend my days supporting black males, those who care about them and love them, and those who are raising them with a unique approach to black mental health struggles. You see, the struggle is because black men are not being taken care of in a way that really touch, moves, and inspires them, right? Black males, black males, we don't do well with one-on-one, right? We don't like isolation. We definitely don't do well with labeling. You know, in the hood, we call that name calling. We don't do well with that, right? We don't do well with code switching when it comes to our lives, right? And we definitely don't have time to break down our lived experiences from others who need some type of explanation before they can give us some colonized version of how we need to go about healing. So I set out to create a unique experience for black men to address the black male mental health struggle. You see, as black males, I found out we need some things. We know a lot. We just need it in a way that we can use our own language to get it, right? We know about breath work, right? We know about meditation. We know about yoga. We're even for the dialectical approach, the cognitive behavior approach, right? We good with relationship and individual therapy. We'd rather have it in group, barbershop. That's where we're comfortable, right? Most of us have had some type of sport, so we get the importance of breath work. We get that. We just need it to come from someone who looks like us and who has walked the walk and talked the talk, right? See, as black males, we don't do what you say. We do what you do, right? So if you could tell us, show us, guide us, walk with us, we honor something. And that's what I did. So how does that look? How does that work in terms of sustaining the existing mental health industry? Well, we have to take more of an uncolonized approach to black mental health. We have to encourage one another that there are certain signs and symbols that are indicators of distress and not necessarily mental disorders or mental illnesses, right? But we need to be able to convey it to this unique group, black males, who have been born under racism. Because racism, aggression, and microaggression, born into that, make something of you, right? It's exhausting. So when you start adding on debt and depression and divorce, you get the picture. You have now become exhausted, right? Not necessarily a mental illness, but things are definitely out of order, right? So that's what we need. We need the existing practitioners to become culturally competent on what this means for the people they serve. We need young college students who are black, preferably male, to be encouraged to go into mental health, right? We need the existing black practitioners to be amplified and elevated, right? And we need all of us to know that there is a unique experience for black males that starts when we are born, mostly caused by racism, right? Exacerbated by unemployment, increased with PTSD symptoms due to violence, right? And this starts when we're in elementary school with suspensions and special education referrals. So I implore all of us to sustain the existing mental health industry. We have to take into consideration the uniqueness of the black male mental health struggle. That goes for first responders on every level. That goes for clergy, university, teachers, students, nonprofit organizations, right? Law enforcers, lawmakers, politicians. All of us have to be re-educated on what that means uniquely for black males and our struggle. And in the spirit of the late, great Earl DMX Simmons, in order to speak for the people, must walk amongst the people. Rest in peace, Dante Wright. Rest in peace, Adam Toledo. Rest in peace, George Floyd. Thank you.